So one of the most popular, if not the most popular technique that all students use to study, it's almost natural. We've almost been ingrained and trained since childhood that this is just natural. We take notes. We open up a book, we start from chapter 1, and we start taking notes, we start writing down important things, we start highlighting paragraphs at a time, lines at a time, thinking that by sitting there and writing these things down, highlighting it, somehow it will just diffuse into our minds. And no one actually in the traditional education system tells us that's not effective. No one. So we continue on with this process, and yeah, you make it by, sometimes you get good grades, and sometimes you do better than others, but at the end of the day, it's not an effective way, because the amount of time that takes for that knowledge to get into your mind, it's just not worth the return. So in this video, I want to talk about how exactly to take notes. And it's not the traditional way. You don't summarize what you read. Instead, what you do is that you formulate questions about the things that you read. For example, I'm going to leave it extremely broad, and obviously I'm a physician, so I will give the example when it comes to medicine. Let's say there's a disease entity, okay? I don't want to get specific, but there's a disease entity, and that entity is associated with other disease processes that are in other places of the body. And if you know anything about medicine, that happens a lot. A lot of diseases are associated with other pathologies, and those happen in various different parts of the body. You might have a brain disease that might end up leading to kidney issues, bladder issues, other parts of the body that seem to be unrelated. And now that's something you have to memorize. So you're going to read it in your textbook, and it's going to say, with this condition, make sure to get an ultrasound of the kidneys because, you can have renal issues. And you'll read it, you'll highlight it, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, next time, make sure to get, ultrasound of the kidneys. A day will go by. All right, let's not even take it that far. A couple of hours will go by. And if you were to try to remember that fact, I guarantee you most people will not be able to remember it. Because you didn't put in any work to get it into your mind. Instead, you just assumed that by highlighting it or by making notes on it, you're just going to remember it. So instead, what you should do is test yourself. You can do that through a question bank. There might be a question that talks about that disease entity and says, what other associated symptoms could you potentially see? That's a great way to test yourself. Or you can, as you take notes, the type of notes that you take is you can write down that disease entity, and then you can then put dash, and in another column, put all the other associated diseases with it. And then when you do go over your notes, it's basically you testing yourself. You look at the disease process and you try to, the other associated conditions are in a different column. You cover that column and you try to test your mind. This is as you're studying, as you're reading. Maybe you'll read that fact. 10 minutes later, you'll try to test yourself. 2 hours later, you might try to test yourself. 3 days later, you might try to test yourself again. And that's the only way that information is going to end up sticking. So when it comes down time for the test, for the exam, anything that the examiners throw at you, you'll already be prepared. It's ingrained in your mind, and you also know how to retrieve it. So you're practicing putting it into your brain, and then you're also practicing how to retrieve it out of your brain. And this is a skill. Studying is a skill. It's not something you're just born with, although some people feel that way. It's not. It's something that you have to train yourself to get good at. Studying is an art. So essentially, if you're going to take notes, like I said, if you feel like you have to, because it's comfort, as you take notes, as you highlight, you feel comfortable. And I have another video talking about how you have to step out of your comfort zone. Make sure that when you are taking those notes, phrase them as questions. Display them in such a way where you have to test yourself to get that knowledge back. Not just blank facts that you have to memorize, because otherwise you're not going to be able to memorize it. So let me know your thoughts below, and until next time.